the individual is inviolable. Now, on coercing someone to stop their opinion, to stop them from speaking their thoughts, quote, "The peculiar evil of silencing the expression of an opinion is that it is robbing the human race, posterity, as well as the existing generation." I pause there for a second. That's a brilliant thought, which I heard Christopher Hitchens make at length. And he said, you don't only have a right to say things that other people might not like. You have a right to hear them. You have a right to hear what is being said. So when the dictators or the politically correct police stop things being said, they violate the people's rights who are speaking, true, but they also violate my right and your right to enter into a free discussion without violating anyone's rights and to exchange ideas freely. So it's robbing the entire human race and all of posterity, as well as the existing generation. Those who dissent from the opinion still more than those who hold it. So the people who hold the opinion, don't worry about that. It's the ones who don't hold that opinion that are really being robbed by silencing this person. He asserts that. I think it could be fleshed out more carefully and shown to be true on more levels or deeper levels, but it's right. He's right. If the opinion is right, they are deprived of the opportunity of exchanging error for truth. So, if the opinion is wrong, what they lose is almost as great a benefit, the clearer perception and livelier impression of truth, produced by its collision with error. So you say, well, they silenced the guy, they violated his right to speak, but what he was saying was trash, bilge, tripe, garbage. He was saying there was no Holocaust. How dare he? John Stuart Mill here is saying that your perception of the truth, what you understand to be the truth, your understanding of the truth, will sharpen and become livelier by knowing these false arguments. And that's what Hitchens said. If you haven't read, who's the guy that they arrested in Austria for denying the Holocaust, he said, if you haven't read his history of the Holocaust and the German Reich, then you don't know the story of the Holocaust and the German Reich. He says any historian who reads that will learn something in there. So it's not just correct opinions that we want to be able to hear freely, but we want to be able to hear incorrect opinions freely. Vitally important. Now he makes the point in the next paragraph that anyone who decides the question excludes other people from the means of judging. And that's a contradiction to say, I can decide for you, but you can't decide for yourself. So that's the only type of people who would stifle freedom of expression and freedom of speech are people who are justifying it for the society as a whole, for a utilitarian purpose. It's ironic, Mill being a utilitarianist, it's ironic that he doesn't judge on that side of the question and say, well, once in a while, if it's really important, we can stifle speech, but we really shouldn't generally. No, he comes out and defends it openly, even though he's a utilitarianist. And here's a great quote for you to put in your pocket. All silencing of discussion is an assumption of infallibility, because you're absolutely certain that these people's attitude is wrong and that yours is right, and you're willing to enforce it with physical force. So you're saying, there's no way I could be wrong. I am correct about this. That's what it takes to silence a discussion. Now we skip several pages down. We're at page 24 now. Why is it that there is on the whole a preponderance among mankind of rational opinions and rational conduct? Now that might strike you as odd. Is there indeed a preponderance of rational opinions and rational conduct? Is that true? That generally speaking, mankind are pretty reasonable? Well, let's continue and see what he has to say. If there really is this preponderance, which there must be unless human affairs are and have always been in an almost desperate state, it is owing to a quality of the human mind, the source of everything respectable in man, either as an intellectual or moral being, namely that his errors are corrigible. We're going to take the whole sentence apart because there's a lot in there. It's one of those classic big old sentences. So he says, obviously there is this preponderance of a rational opinion and rational conduct in human affairs, or else human affairs have always been and are today in a desperate state. I guess there's two ways to look at that. You could either say, well, we must be fairly reasonable on the whole, because society seems to sort of get along and do its thing, and we're not in a desperate state. Or you could take a pessimistic view and say, well, no wonder we're in such a desperate state because rational opinion and rational attitude is not, by and large, the case. And that's kind of the direction I lean. I don't just look at myself in the streets near me, which is possibly what he was doing, sitting in some comfortable flat writing this, and forgetting about the cannibalistic tribes and the Aborigines and the Native Americans that were hunting pilgrims and stuff, all that going on in the world at the time that he wrote these things. And just forget all that, and he says, well, I can walk to the nearby corner store and buy a chamber pot for 6 pence, and I can get some ink or go play cards at the bar. I can do whatever I want. It's a lovely world, and people are generally rational. Now, there must be some sort of general rationality to humans, or we wouldn't have survived so long. So I see the point he's getting at. But if you ask me, humanity is in a pretty desperate strait, or is in desperate straits or a desperate state. Just about every place on the planet today. Even America, fighting multiple wars which it doesn't care to fight and is trying to get out of. Been occupying Germany and Japan for 50 years, and we think we can get out of Iraq in 5? So, things are in a desperate state. And it's because people don't necessarily always think about things rationally. But let's continue with his thought. He says that if people are generally rational, it's because of this one quality of the human mind, that a human being's errors are corrigible, meaning you can get him to change his future actions by analyzing his past actions that have failed. It's not necessarily the case with an animal that when it makes this or that error, you can get them to change their ways. Like they make the error of not having a dry place to sleep even though it's going to rain tonight. And there's no corrigibility in animals as far as that goes. They're still not going to build a house. They're still not going to construct tools and trade and stuff. So he is capable, man is capable of rectifying his mistakes by discussion and experience. Now here's the point he's driving at. Not by experience alone. He asserts that you cannot correct your errors just by experience. You have to discuss things. There must be discussion to show how experience is to be interpreted. Wrong opinions and practices gradually yield to fact and argument. But fact and argument, to produce any effect on the mind, must be brought before it. Very few facts are able to tell their own story without comment to bring out their meaning. Now that is an essential statement, that last one there. Very few facts are able to tell their own story without comment to bring out their meaning. You cannot simply present the evidence. You have to say what you mean. You have to give the conclusion that you're trying to show. You cannot simply say, here's a fact about reality, and here's another fact about reality, and then walk away. Or else you're just naming trivia. It's ridiculous. Plus, any given fact could be evidence for this, or for that, or for the other. I could point at a table for many reasons. I could point at it to prove philosophically what the definition of ostensive means. What does it mean to ostensively prove that the universe exists? And I point at a wooden table and I say, here is a wooden table. That's ostensive proof. I'm simply pointing to it. Or I could point to a wooden table to prove how pine can be used productively. And I could possibly point to a wooden